like to invite Leo Albea, the founder of One Down Media, and Bel Baldoza, Director of Global Communications at TikTok, for our next panel. So I wanted to start by just asking, first, Leo, can you tell us what you do at One Down Media? What is One Down Media? I know you came up with this really cool slideshow or lookbook that we all saw on Instagram about who we are.
Yeah, you were featured there.
Thank you. Go ahead, tell us.
I think that post really showcases what we get to do. We get to tell the stories of amazing Filipinos that don't often get represented. And so for us, I mean, the root of where we started, One Down, is the English translation of Isang Bagsak. What that means to us is when one of us rises, we all rise. If one of us falls, we all fall. And so when we see other Filipinos and we're able to amplify their story, that means success that can be reinvested into the community. So as a business, what we are as a media company is if a business owner, if a community, if anyone needs to reach 1 million people, we know how to do that using creativity and science.
Wow, what is Isang Bagsak again? I remember it's like high five.
Isang Bagsak for college students in Filipino in Filipino American college circles. We would all go together at the end of like a PCN or something, and we would do the unity clap, which originates from the 1960s farm workers, where there's Mexican and Filipino solidarity, and then also the Isang Bagsak has roots within the people power movement within the Philippines. Yeah, so for us, it's really about intentionality and who we are accountable, which is our global Filipino community.
That's awesome. And Bel, can you, yeah, Isang Bagsak for that. Can you tell us what you do at TikTok? You're the Director of Global Communications. I mean, all of us probably have a TikTok account. Share with us, what is a day in the life of Bel at TikTok?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you so much for the opportunity of being here. And I'll have to say, I'm just like mind blown at all the stories, even the open mic stories that like I've heard about, you know, like your journeys. And yeah, like I'm just like really grateful. So my name is Bel, and I am the Global Director of Consumer and Brand Communications at TikTok. People always ask me, whenever I tell them I work at TikTok, they're asking me if I'm a creator, but actually I'm not, but I'm more of a storyteller. So my role is to really highlight, shine a light on the best, I would say, aspects, the power and the positive impact of our platform as a platform that really benefits like creators, artists, businesses, brands, like SMBs through the power of discovery and self-expression. So I look for all those stories and like work with our PR teams all over the world to tell those stories.
Right, so this panel, which I only learned about like 5 minutes ago, that I will be moderating, is supposed to be your story about becoming leaders in your fields despite the challenges that you faced in your personal and professional lives. So Leo, can you start by telling us your story from the beginning? How was the Leo formed? The Leo of today, how was he formed?
So I grew up, I'm Filipino American. I grew up in Southern California. My dad was the son of a fisherman who immigrated to the US. And the way our parents knew success is you need to go into the military or you need to go into the medical field. And that's all I knew for 18 years. And I remember when I had graduated college from UCLA, I wanted to be a creative. I wanted to be a director and enter into media and entertainment. But nobody looked like me. And one of the things that I think is so common when we talk about, you know, resilience is for us to succeed, we have to see people who look like us who can do that. And I didn't have that. And I remember that's why we had created One Down, because we wanted to create a platform to solve this for the next generation of Filipino creatives. And I got into this publisher, a digital publisher called Blossom. Blossom is known as the most viral page on Facebook. And I started from the very bottom. I was called a production apprentice. And I never took a lunch. I was always studying. How do you go viral? When people say virality today, they usually think it's 1 million views. For us, our quota is 100 million views, organic. And so I remember in February of 2019, algorithms constantly change. If you're a business owner, if you're a creative, I had also worked at an app, so algorithms are kind of core, and the algorithm had changed, and we were trying to hack our way and optimize our way using creativity to go viral again. In February 2019, my first video went viral, and then the next one went viral. I had done 4 in a row, and then later in that year, in 2020, the video that I had produced, which was for a millennial women audience, showing how you can hack normal kitchen items to do the exact same things that Amazon kitchen gadgets can do. That video ended up being the most watched Facebook video in the world of 2020 in the home and DIY category. And that changed my life. And a lot of it took just grit and focus on wanting to really be the best within this given thing. And I remember there were so many videos during that period of time that I always felt like, shoot, I have to prove to my parents, to my community, to everyone that like we can actually succeed in these non-traditional careers. And so after we had done that, that's when I started working within the Filipino community, building out One Down and asking ourselves, you know, everyone knows the Mr. Beasts of the world, but what if you had access to that same ability to go viral for your community in parts that are extremely necessary? Mental health, discussions about body shaming, even racism. What if we had that skill set within our community? And that's what we really wanted to accomplish.
Wow, that's an amazing story. And by the way, not everybody would know who Mr. Beast is. I only learned about that maybe 10 days ago from my 10-year-olds. Mr. Beast is actually, who is he? He went
He's
viral
a very
for his,
large
like,
YouTuber who's known to get hundreds of millions of views.
Yes, and he sells chocolates now, I believe. Yes. He has like products. So, Belle, can you relate to this story about the challenges that you also went through in your career?
Oh, 100%. And I think like that's really a great, I mean, again, like an inspiring theme that I think like a lot of people can relate throughout this day. I've had my fair share for sure. I was born and raised in the Philippines. So unlike probably like most of you, I'm like really the first immigrant in our family. So we migrated to Toronto almost 5 years ago. But before that, like I started out like my career in PR actually back home in the Philippines. I started doing PR for this big stadium called the Araneta Coliseum, which is, I don't know, like people know that, but like it's kind of like your Madison Square Garden. And that was really like, I would say like my foundational, I would say playground for storytelling. Like I learned how to do like, you know, promote stories about concerts, about beauty pageants, because I was doing PR for Binibining Pilipinas. I also like learned how to do food PR because the Arenetas, they own the Filipino franchises of Pizza Hut, Taco Bell, and Dairy Queen. And I had like an amazing first job. I absolutely love my career, and I wanted to be in PR, like I would say like, yeah, since like day one, really. But at the same time, I also like wanted to see if there was something more outside of the Philippines. So right after my first job, I basically have not lived in the Philippines like since my first job. And I just like ventured out, and just in terms of like all the challenges, I think the challenge that I've had to really deal with throughout my career was to start like something from nothing. And I think that that is actually the pervasive theme of my life, because when I started out, well, I moved to Thailand first, like after the Philippines, and I took a break from PR. But then after that, I decided to go to Singapore, and in Singapore, I had bought a tourist visa, and which meant that I had 30 days to get a job, which like at the time was probably like something that it was a blessing in disguise, because obviously like I had to hustle, but then at the same time I was also like, okay, like who is going to take a chance on someone like me? And then fast forward to that, thankfully, some PR agencies pretty much took a chance on me. But what really kickstarted my career doing PR for some of the most interesting technology companies of our time was my experience again, starting or trying something out of nothing. And in 2013, I came across a job ad looking for a PR manager for a new company that just started in Asia called Spotify. And I don't know, who here doesn't use Spotify now? Okay, so back in the day, no one knew what it was about. Back in those days, no one knew what it was about, and the role that they're looking for was somebody to explain what it was to journalists, how it works, and why it's going to be the future of entertainment and music. And so with that, I was a PR person, but I have never done any technology PR whatsoever. I had zero experience in that space. I've only done lifestyle PR, but what I've had was a real love for music. And with that, I just told myself, you know what? Why not? I'm just going to send over my CV. And true enough, I was definitely not the most talented person in the room. I was not the most experienced because I was just I wasn't even 30 at the time. But somehow, my love for music and my story resonated with the recruiters, and that began my journey, really. And since then, I've been really privileged to be able to be at the ground floor of developing stories for probably some of the most interesting technology companies of our time. I moved on to Netflix, where I was also part of the Pioneer Global team, the first PR person in Asia, and then Uber, Airbnb, and I've been at TikTok now for a collective 6 years. So that's been really amazing.
Congratulations, amazing story. Now, one of the quotable quotes from PHTimeIsNow last year, I don't know if some of you were there, Reggie Valdez said that your Filipino-ness is your superpower. 100%. Right? So how did you use your being a Filipino or your Filipino-ness to overcome the challenges? What is it about being a Filipino that actually helped you overcome your challenges?
I think running a Filipino media company, we have to center our experiences on it. It very much so is the center of our power. And oftentimes what happens is people look at us, or I've gotten unsolicited advice to go broader, go Asian American, why just Filipino? And we've spent so long resisting this notion that Filipinos are niche, but rather we have so much power in multiple industries. And that's what inspires us. When we, discuss topics in the most niche of places, we uncover that there are millions of people who relate, whose stories aren't seen. So I love that you asked that question, because for me, building a strong business or building something that is for our community, it has to start within our community. It has to start with our personal. And this is one of the things that I often tell creatives and creators and business folks: build what you wanted growing up. And that really can change the world.
I love that.
That's so nice.
That's the new soundbite for 2024.
How did you use your being a Filipino?
That's a really amazing question because it resonates with me so much, because for actually throughout my career doing tech PR for these companies, I'm usually either the only Filipino or the only Asian in my team. And so I think that just in terms of the superpower that I've really harnessed is that sense of empathy that we have as Filipinos, that sense of kapwa that we have. And I think that benefited me on through a couple of things. From a professional standpoint, I learned how to do media relations back in the Philippines, which, as you are aware, you've been in the media, is very relationship driven. And I realized that when I moved to Singapore and in other markets, and even here in the US, I would say that it's not necessarily the driver. How you pitch a story would be a driver. However, because of your ability to like be able to stay connected with a person, find something in common, like the reporter that you're speaking with, really understanding what the stories that, the stories that they like writing about. I feel like that sense of empathy like really helped me nurture relationships and really go the extra mile. And I think like as a leader as well, I would say like observing like different cultures and like how leaders are expected to act, especially like in a North American setting. I think that like my Filipino-ness has like definitely benefited me, and like I'm just gonna like probably like recount some of the instances of my team, but I think like a lot of their comments really focus on like Bal is like the more like one of the most supportive managers that I've ever had, because I like instead of just like okay like leading the charge, like like basically like asking teams what to do and delegating everything, I always come from a place of understanding and empathy for them, and sometimes like to a fault. And so I think that like for me, like that for me is actually like a win in itself, even though like it may not be seen as okay like that's typical leader behavior if you like always putting yourself in like your team's shoes.
Thank you for sharing that. Would you say that your parents' immigration stories kind of also helped you? How did it begin? How did your parents' immigration stories begin? And if you would love to share some of that.
Yeah, it's a very emotional question, because I think a lot of people here, not just Filipino Americans, but in general, we do so much because of our parents. And I always like using the quote, "We stand on the shoulders of giants." And for me, it's a huge driving factor of what we do. I constantly think of the Bicol region where both of my parents are from. I think of my dad, who very much so, like the story of Dado, like inspires me so much, because it reminds me of what my dad had gone through, and his one thing was like, go study as well. He passed away from cancer 4 years ago, and I've always felt it because we share the same names. I'm Leopoldo III. And so it means so much that, he immigrated through the military, came here, and he did it all so that we can have a better life. And so for us, how it drives us forward is we ask ourselves, how do we pay it forward for folks that are just like him, that also want to succeed but might not necessarily have those opportunities. And same for my mom as well, who was in the medical field and immigrated here as well. I guess just to sum it up, what I always encourage folks is like, the story that drives you is often one of family. And this is what Sheila, I think, had mentioned earlier, like being Filipino means that a lot of what we do is tied to how we value family. And if you've seen One Down, like you'll see all my sisters are also in One Down. And that was also because in the beginning, we didn't have any funding. So I would ask my ate, I was like, can you please help me? Can you be the actress? Mom, can you be the actor? Can you help with the snacks? It was a family effort in order to make it this far. And so, yeah, the immigration kind of connection for us is extremely important. And just this last thing, it meant so much for me to go back to the Philippines, live there for a year, and work there. And that's where we get really passionate about. It's not just leaving the Philippines that equals success. It's going there and giving back.
We have 5 minutes, Belle. Any parting words? Maybe you can share what you think our guests could glean from your experience.
I think that like one of the things that I'm really passionate about sharing is that I think like a lot of this has also been said earlier as well, that like your story, I mean my story can also be your story. And the reason why like I love like reaching out and connecting, especially like to young people who are aspiring to like enter, whether it's like the communications field or like just like basically like I want to have a job in tech, is that I want to show especially like Filipinos that like like if you just like really really work hard, like given your extra 10%, and probably like outwork everyone in the room, even if you're not the smartest, even if you're not the most experienced, I will guarantee you that one day you will get that break. And because it has happened to someone like me too. A random, like kid from the east side of Metro Manila, absolutely like nothing to do with technology. But I loved stories and I love music, and like that confluence of all of the things that I love and I'm passionate about ultimately led to something really fulfilling in my life and my journey. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much to Leo and Belle for sharing with us your
Thank you for having us.
global Filipino journey. Thank you.